Hi, and welcome to week 5 of our prophecy course. This week is exegesis of prophecy, and we're going to be looking primarily at Habakkuk. Keep in mind that this weekend is Easter weekend. That does not mean that we have less work, and it does not mean that you get extensions. It just means you need to get started early so that you're not up against the gun on Monday trying to go, oh man, I wish I had listened and started my assignments on Tuesday and Wednesday instead of waiting. So please get started early, and let me jump into our discussion on exegesis of Habakkuk. So our goals are to create outlines of a prophetic passage for use in exegesis and teaching. 2, to complete a word study on an important Hebrew word for the interpretation of Habakkuk. And then finally, to complete a cultural background study of Hebrew terms in Habakkuk. So this week in assignment 5.1, and there's no discussion, that will help us a little bit on time, but on assignment 5.1, you're to do a word study of what would be translated Giyl, or Gimel Yod Lamed, and it is typically translated as "and is glad" in Habakkuk 1:15. And so you're to, and this should not be the first time you've done a word study. I'm sure you've done them in a couple of my classes at the beginning of this program, but you're to look at the Hebrew word gil and how it is translated in Habakkuk 1, chapter 1, verse 15. And then you're to write a 5-page word study paper that identifies the Hebrew word or root, shows and summarizes all occurrences of this term in the Old Testament, organized by showing its use in the Pentateuch, showing its use in poetry, and then showing its use in the prophets. Be sure, in case you haven't done a word study in a while, do not look up how glad is used throughout the Bible. Look up how the Hebrew word is translated. Otherwise, you're going to get skewed results. In addition, in the 5-page paper, you should do a synthesis or a synthesizing research on the word's usage and or meaning using Brown, Driver, and Briggs, BDB, or Halo, and commentaries. I want you to justify a particular rendering of the word and argue its significance in understanding the meaning in Habakkuk chapter 1:15. So you're going to be analyzing in this 5-page paper Habakkuk 1, verse 15. So I would start there and look at what is the context of the use of that term in verse 15. Then I would do a full study of the word as it's used everywhere else in the Old Testament. I would be sure to look at commentaries and look at Brown, Driver, Briggs, and look at other online commentaries for the use of the word, and then finally come back at the end of your study to Habakkuk chapter 1:15 and say, okay, based upon all of the research I have done, this is what I think this term is trying to tell us in this verse. So it's a long paper on a Hebrew word study. Second, we have a context paper in assignment 5.2. In 3 pages, explain the significance of the imagery fishhook, dragnet, and thrownet in Habakkuk verses 15 and 16 of chapter 1 for the interpretation of Habakkuk 1 verse 12 through 2 verse 1. Be sure to use a background study source provided in your reading this week and your own independent research using Logos, which is mandated by Moody at the master's level, EBSCO, which is a search engine also in use at Moody, and other web searches, resources to provide a full picture of the significance of the cultural aspect for interpretation. So you're looking specifically at verses 15 and 16 and its use of fishhook, dragnet, and thrownet to better understand the end of chapter 1 in Habakkuk. I need you to use at least 7 academic resources. Now, keep in mind, an academic resource is not a website. An academic resource is a paper, a book, or some other research-based publication. Websites do not qualify. Beneath each outline, provide a paragraph that explains and or justifies your outline structure. So as you do the reading this week and as you look at the handouts and the video lectures, you'll get more information on what is looked for in this cultural context paper. Call me or email me with questions. And again, I highly encourage you to get an early start this week so you're not having to think about it while you're with family and friends celebrating Easter. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.